So back to you, Markus.
Thank you, Frank, and thank you, Christian, and Ron, and Gavin. This is really, today it feels like being live on stage with all of you, and having all of you, more than 2,100 members out there in front of us in a big hall where we can just share the energy and our common vision. And I love so much your comments and also the commitments which I have seen. And many of you expressed gratitude for a present which we are just in the process of making to you, which is a coherence program. And before talking about the Coil, which is so exciting, I like to talk a little about what's going on right now, because until today we have sent out through our server already around 80,000 coherence programs for you, our members. So if you got it already, you're lucky. If not, you're also lucky, because within the next less than 10 days, you will get the other remaining maybe around 80, 90,000. So, and thousands and thousands of those who received the coherence program already have answered by submitting their survey. And this is really my great pleasure, because I have this passion for science. So I love studies and surveys. I need facts, and we have facts, so we are creating more facts. And whenever you get your coherence program, just take 5 minutes, fill in your survey, answer how you're feeling today, and in 2 weeks do it again after applying the coherence program. And lots of questions received me through different channels, and people didn't really know exactly what coherence means and what's the idea, what's the purpose of the coherence program. So yesterday night, before going to sleep, I sat down and wrote a small little thing to explain what is coherence out of my perspective. So if you're permit, I will just read it to you and explain it a little and give you another idea what this coherence program is about. So what's coherence? Coherence is the ability of a person to respond flexibly as a whole to the stimuli of his environment, and at the same time to follow powerfully the meaning of his own existence. So it's a combination of being flexible enough to face all the different challenges which we're having left and right every day, every month, every year, and still remain focused on the purpose, because it's the purpose of our existence which gives us the power to go through life and which will bring us there where we finally actually belong to. And that's important. Both aspects are there of coherence. Coherence is a measure of inner consistency and balance, as well as the ability to communicate and interact with the external. So it's balance means, on the one side, coherence means consistency. We are one. We are strong internally. We have a structure, but simultaneously we are open. We are open to the world, like Healy word. It needs a strong structure and foundation. For this, we have now a very operational team, which is more introvert, which will, they have equipped our hubs each with more than 25,000 Healys waiting for you. So that's the structure we need. But simultaneously, we need this extrovert people like Ron Williams, like Gavin, like Christian, who just love to communicate with you and share with you and develop a strategy how to bless the whole world with Healys. Coherence corresponds to a strong sense of purpose and the power that arises from it to be able to create an inner and outer order. And that's a very important aspect of coherence. Wherever consciousness is active in a true sense, we create coherence. We create an outer order which corresponds to the inner order. And this is the most powerful thing we can have. If the outer order which we create by our activity, by our impact in this world, corresponds to our inner order. And the power to do this, the power of consciousness, is the power of coherence. The interplay of the parts of an organism, the harmonious relationship between the organism, the mind and the soul, and of the individual to the community are called coherence. Coherence means that all the parts of the system, like the organs in my body, they act if they are one. All the cells within my liver, they act as if they are one liver. They have one purpose. You see, the purpose of the cell is to have a strong liver. And this liver, the purpose of the liver, together with the kidney and the spleen and the heart, is to have a strong body. And the purpose of the body, together with the mind and with the soul, is to be a strong being. And we are not a strong being, just an individual for ourselves. If we would just be for ourselves, we would be nothing. So we are for ourselves and for the others. So we are a part of a community. That's coherence. The application of the coherence program pursues the goal of strengthening the feeling of coherence. So how do you figure out that you have coherence in your body and in your mind and your soul? Very simple. You develop this feeling of coherence. You develop a sense of coherence. So that's what we want to achieve, that you feel coherent. I hope this helps you, and I have given this small writing to Frank, and definitely he will find ways to share it with all of you. So coming back to the surprise of the day. Today we start this Healy Coil promotion, which answers your questions, and many have asked in the chat already, how can we get a Healy Coil? And many have asked me, they say, oh, Marcus, I know you very well, please, can you get me a Healy Coil? I say, no, I can't. I have one Healy Coil, and I had a second one, and I gave it as a present to Christian Hyper because he is also using it every day. And that's what I'm doing since a few weeks. I am exclusively using my Healy together with the Healy Coil. So I'm not using the wires. Of course, the wires are very important to connect to your Healy and also to connect you to your wrists. But now you have the chance to always use your Healy with the Healy Coil. So I want to demonstrate it to you. That's the compact Healy, but now it consists of two parts. And here it is. That's the Healy Coil. And it's called a coil because I'm coming close to you. You see that on this side, there is a very fine coil, like a spiral going all around, which creates a magnetic field. So if you turn it around, now you can't see it, but on the other side, there is a second coil. It has the opposite direction. So both directions together, they create what Nikola Tesla was already doing experiments with. It's something called a bifilar coil. It's a double coil. It's a double coil which creates a very, very special type of field. And that's what I want to talk about just in a few minutes. So I again connect both of them. Here's the Healy, and here's your Healy coil, and you can just connect it. And that's all. And now you can just start your Healy, and even without adjusting the intensity, I can start using it because this special application of the Healy with the Healy coil doesn't need a special intensity because the field is not depending on its intensity. Just a moment. I want to fix it where it belongs because I like it in this very special place at my neck. It's very important that you carry the Healy close to your body if you use it with the coil, because through this coil, the frequencies which are created by the frequency generator of your Healy, these frequencies which are analyzed from the information field through the physical noise generator, which we call the quantum sensor in your Healy, interacts with the field, the bioenergetic field of your body. And I want to get a little more in detail now about what really made me so passionate, which really inspired me so much, that with my team I developed this Healy coil. So I asked Frank, maybe you can share the first picture with us, which I prepared, a small presentation. And again, you remember last Frequency Friday, if you were there, I had my favorite t-shirt. And the guy who was there on my favorite t-shirt when he was a little older, when he became a punk, is here on the left side. It's no one else than Albert Einstein. And of course, Albert, not only the genius, but also the personality of Albert Einstein has inspired generations of young men like me to join universities to study physics. And Albert Einstein was a great inspiration for me because he started a revolution. He was a punk from the beginning of his life because he just saw it differently. And he had a great vision. And this great vision, by his competence in physics and mathematics, he put into creating a revolution in science and technology. So one of the revolutions he started in 1905 was the development of quantum physics. But as you know, when quantum physics started, and then a younger generation of physicists, also of geniuses like Niels Bohr and Erwin Schrödinger, and especially Werner Heisenberg, took it over, they created something like a quantum mysticism from it, where if you are not observing a physical particle, it's not there, it doesn't exist, it's only a wave of probabilities. And if you observe, it suddenly appears. And if you're not observing anymore, again, there's just this field of probabilities. This is a really mystical understanding of reality. But Albert Einstein said, this can't be true, this is not complete. So he was almost so desperate that he said, if we don't solve this paradox of quantum physics, I am regretting that I have ever started to study physics, and I should have rather become a cobbler. That's not offense against the cobblers. My own grandfather was a cobbler, and he was a great man. But, so I've also could have become a cobbler, but I decided to become a physicist because I got so inspired to maybe be a little part of solving this problem. And therefore, on this picture, there's not only Albert Einstein, whose face everyone in the world knows, but another very great personality. His name is David Bohm. And he joined Albert Einstein at Princeton University, where he was an assistant professor when Albert Einstein was there, after he, for very good reasons, had to leave Germany in 1938. And David Bohm and Albert Einstein, they cooperated and they understood each other so well that Albert Einstein considered David Bohm as his spiritual son. And this really means they must have been quite on the same wavelength. And it was David Bohm who took over this great responsibility to solve the problems of quantum physics. And I would say he succeeded. In 1952, he published a paper where he explained a new version of quantum physics, which is so simple and beautiful. Very simply, he said, David Bohm, not David Bohm, but the other one, Niels Bohr and Werner Heisenberg, they said that particles are only there if you measure them. Otherwise, an electron is not a particle, it's a wave of probabilities. So if you look from one angle at an electron, it is a particle. If you look from a different angle, it's a wave, but it can never be a particle and a wave together. So he came out with this principle of complementarity, so that you need almost like contradictory worldviews to describe one and the same object. And this is really creating a lot of paradoxes, like, for example, Erwin Schrödinger's cat paradox, where a half alive and a half dead cat are simultaneously present in the description of physics. And this really doesn't make any sense. So David Bohm solved this paradox by coming out with a mathematically consistent version of quantum physics, where there is a particle like an electron, it exists physically, and simultaneously in the background there is a wave which guides the particle on its way through what he called pilot waves. So it's a very simple idea. There is a wave there is a background, which is a wave function, which is an implicit reality which you can't measure, but it contains all the information to guide the way of the particles through reality. So this is a revolutionary thought which brings quantum physics back to a realistic description of physics. So until now they're discussing it, and according to this idea, David Bohm developed with a colleague, a Russian colleague, whose name is Aharonov, a very simple experiment which he first thought through theoretically, and then also the experiments were conducted to really prove that this is true. And this is very deeply connected to how or what inspired me to develop the coil. It's not a proof that the coil works or how the coil works, but it's really the physics which inspired me to develop it. And here it is. It's very interesting. This is a so-called and very famous double slit experiment in physics. Here is an electron gun. So it means it shoots electrons at a wall which has two slits through which the electron can pass. And from there, the electrons are propagating to meet at a screen here. And there, what happens is that they are creating an interference pattern. And this interference pattern, as you see it here, proves that the electron also behaves like a wave, because if two waves interfere with each other, they create such an orderly pattern. So that's known from physics since a long time. So what Aharonov and Bohm did is that in between, they put a magnetic field, like the Healy coil creates a magnetic field. But what they did is they shielded the magnetic field with a soft metal so that the magnetic field completely stays inside this cylinder, and outside the cylinder, the magnetic field is zero. It's absolutely cancelled. So normally we would expect that it doesn't affect the electrons, but it does. Depending on the polarization of the shielded magnetic field, the interference fringes, the interference pattern is moved slightly to the left, or if you turn around the polarization of the magnetic field, it's shifted slightly to the right, and back and forth while you continue switching the polarization of the magnetic field. But if you switch it off, then you get the same interference pattern as if the magnetic field would not be there. And this is an experimental proof for that a magnetic field can also act in areas where it is zero. And this is around this coverings. And how is it? Because even a magnetic field which is cancelled to become zero creates what David Bohm called a quantum potential. The quantum potential is a field, it's a background field of reality, which even having no strength or energy itself, by being pure information, so-called active information, can influence the matter which moves in such a field. So now coming back to the Healy coil. Here you find the Healy coil, the naked coil without the covering. I take it again apart. You see one side of it. On the other side, you have a coil which goes in the other direction. So if you put both together, you have a magnetic field which has a positive direction and the same magnetic field which has a negative direction. And they cancel each other so that with the magnetic field sensor, which we have here, you cannot measure a field anymore. The magnetic field becomes almost zero. but still the quantum potential is there. And the quantum potential still influences the qualities of the electrons and other particles or ions or atoms within this field from inside. It's an internal influence, which is more like information than energy. And that's, I like to give you a very, very practical analogy to understand this. Just imagine a big airplane which has thousands of tons of weight, and this huge airplane is moving through the air, and first it has to start and it has to land, and it gets accelerated and it changes its direction. How and why? Because a small pilot is sitting inside who has just a few kg of weight, and with a very little force, with almost no force, he can steer, he can direct the airplane just with almost no energy. So in a similar way, this quantum field, which has a zero strength of magnetic field and which has almost no energy, can steer the particles from inside. And that's the beauty of information. The beauty of especially active information. It doesn't need energy, it doesn't need power to direct, but it just needs to influence the physical particles from inside. So, and this is what David Bohm has understood theoretical. And I asked the engineer of the Healy coil, which you again here see naked, to calculate the shape of the quantum potential, or it's called the vector potential in the case of a magnetic field. And here you see it. It's around 12 centimeters shape going in from both directions of the coil into space. Therefore, if I'm wearing the Healy coil, I like to attach it here on my shirt so that it's very close to my neck. 10 to 12 centimeters. I could also wear it at my belt, or I could put it into a pocket in my jacket. But there's a specific reason why I like to wear it here at my neck. And this is a special situation which refers to my personality, but I think it's also true for you. We have a head with a brain, and we have a heart. And our brain constantly creates thoughts, and it's more the rational aspect of our personality. But our heart is related to our feelings and our emotions. And for me, personally, it's so important to develop this inner coherence of connecting my brain, my head to my heart. I know if I can just manage this every day to connect my heart with my head with my heart, and my heart with my head in a coherent way, then I can really use the gifts which I got, the talents which I got. If I can connect my feeling, if I can connect my compassion and my visions in my heart to the power of my brain, and that's true for all of you, then I can make the biggest difference in the world. And this is what I want to do. So I'm using the Healy, especially now, to create this coherence, to connect heart and brain. And for this, I love to have it. I love to have it here at this area. But it's not really so much necessary, because the quantum potential, or this vector potential of the magnetic field, has a non-local effect. So wherever you actually place it, at your body, it affects the whole. So, but still, as long as my inner field is not completely coherent, I like to place it there where I think I need it the most. And in this way, you can place your Healy wherever you feel you need it the most. You can go according to your feeling, especially if you develop more coherence, you develop a feeling also physically for what is good for you. So you can use the Healy wherever you feel it will, you need it the most. So follow your intuition, follow your feeling, and in this way you can do the best out of your Healy. So I'm looking so much looking so much forward to having all of you running around with your Healy with a coil connected. It doesn't mean that you will not use the Healy anymore with the electrodes. No, you will do it in the same way. You can every day have 1 or 2 programs specifically with your electrodes through your wrists, bands, or through local electrodes. Yes, continue to do it. But I'm wearing the Healy all the time, and I constantly start the program again because it's so practical. If I have my Healy program on it, and right now I have a very special program for me on it, then I can start it without using my smartphone. And this really keeps me connected to my Healy every single day. So such a great inspiration coming for this, and I believe it's a milestone for the Healy world to start working with the Healy coil. And I think this Healy coil promotion, which starts on this special Tuesday, is a good way for you to start with the Healy coil as early as possible. I hope they're coming already end of April, the coils, and then are shipped to our hubs in Europe, in the United States, and in Singapore. And I think we have one in India, and wherever we still have hubs. And then those of you who qualify through the Healy coil promotion, they will have it a few weeks before we start selling them. And that's really a great opportunity, because I decided also to have a special webinar for you to go deeper into the background of the coil and how to use it and so on. So I'm really looking forward to this. And actually, I have another picture for you. On my coil, it's animated, it's turning around, but it's not necessary. It shows you again the magnetic field lines which coming from the Healy coil and which go deeply into space. But they're not important because they are cancelled to be zero. They are just shown here in a principal way. But here you see again the quantum potential. So, and this is, I'm coming to the end of the small inspiration. And I didn't want to say that through this Einstein and David Bohm's research, there's any proof that the coil is effective. This we see when we apply the coil and see what it really does, how it really changes. But it's an inspiration for me, and it can show also how the coil and the microcurrent applications are complementing each other. It's like yin and yang. And therefore, I so much love the symbol of the ancient Taoist masters, which gives us an idea how there is a constant interplay between the two parts of reality, the yin and the yang, the male and the female, the active and the passive, the material and the spiritual aspects of reality. So here down, we have the blue circle, the blue point within the white area, and here we have the white, the bioenergetic field within the blue area. So the bioenergetic field and the physical matter are permeating each other. They are not separated from each other. So if the microcurrent works with the frequencies, the low frequencies of the Healy, it directly affects very obviously the physical and our cells, because they're corresponding to electrical current. So therefore, I so much also like to use the Healy. Still, I'm having the coil with the wires directly experiencing the electricity. But if I use the Healy with the coil, especially the higher frequencies, then we have the pure frequencies. The pure frequencies which do not have anymore the physical force of a field or a current, but which are pure, as you can call it, quantum frequencies, because it's a vibrating potential which we are creating through the special way of arranging the magnetic coils. So in this way, these Healy coil frequencies are purely intended to harmonize the bioenergetic field, which is unifying the body and the mind, and the soul, which actually make us as a whole human being. So it's a very holistic way. So in future you can use it complementary. And yeah, I hope I could inspire you already a little now to go for this next 6 weeks. And Frank will tell you more about it.
Well, thank you very much, Marcus, for sharing the scientific background and your excitement for the Healy coil. And when you follow the chat, a lot of our members are excited and they are waiting for the coil to come out.